I paid a witch doctor to destroy her, but the curse found its way back to my own hands.
My people, let me tell you about a man called Emeka Okafor. The Emeka Okafor, the man who owned the biggest shop on the main road in Otuocha. The man who had not one, not two, but three generators running at the same time while his neighbors begged NEPA for light. The man whose name, if you dropped it carelessly in conversation, could make a landlord stand up straight. That Emeka. But I will tell you this now, before I even begin. By the time I finish this story, you will laugh. Because the same Emeka, this man who paid a witch doctor with real money, cold cash, to destroy a widow selling yams by the roadside, this same man would end up watching every coin he touched turn to nothing in his hands. But wait, let me start from the beginning. Emeka walked through Otuocha market the way water moves through a place it believes it owns. Only shoulders wide, chin lifted, slippers slapping the ground with a sound that said, move. People did move. Not because they loved him, because Emeka had a memory like a pot that never emptied. And if you crossed him, even slightly, even by accident, he would remember. The provision store owners nodded when he passed. The young men greeted him before he greeted them. Even the market women who had been selling in that square since before Emeka's mother carried him on her back found reasons to look elsewhere when he came near. He was not the richest man in the state. He was not even the richest man in Otuocha. But Emeka had something worse than wealth. He had the belief that he deserved to be. And a man who believes that with his full chest is more dangerous than a man who is simply rich. His shop was called Emeka Supreme Stores. The word Supreme painted in red letters so large they could be read from the other side of the road. He sold everything: rice, oil, provisions, building materials, phone credit, fabric. If Otuocha needed something, Emeka either had it or made sure you remember that he had it last time. He had two boys working for him who woke before sunrise and locked up after dark, and he paid them just enough so they could not afford to leave. The core of the man was this: Emeka Okafor did not dislike competition because he feared losing. He disliked it because he believed the market was his property and anyone else profiting inside it was stealing from him. That was not anger, that was a philosophy. And it was this philosophy, settled deep in his chest like a stone at the bottom of a river, that would be his undoing. But he did not know that yet. Her name was Adaeze. She came into Emeka's life the way most good things came into bad men's lives. Quietly, hopefully, with no reason yet to be afraid. She was the third daughter of a school teacher from Auka. Soft-spoken, hard-working, the kind of woman who woke before the household and slept after it. When Emeka came to ask for her hand, he wore a clean agbada and spoke with a measured voice. And her father saw a man of means and said, yes. The first year was tolerable. The second year was not. It started with small things, the way it always starts with small things. A plate of soup, he said, was cold when steam was still rising from it. A greeting, he said, was too slow. A laugh at a neighbor's joke that he decided lasted 1 second too long. Emeka did not shout. Emeka was not a shouting man. He was quieter than that. And quiet men who have decided something are harder to survive than loud ones. The neighbors on their street heard things sometimes. A door, a chair, sounds that came at night and stopped before morning. They told themselves it was none of their business. An elder on the compound said once that a man's house is a man's house. So they looked at the sky when Adaeze passed them with her eyes down. She never told her father. She never told anyone. She carried it the way women in that generation were taught to carry things: inward, silent, folded small. Adais died in the third year of their marriage. The hospital wrote down something about her heart. Emeka buried her with a ceremony that people still talked about. Plenty of food, a live band, genuine looking tears. And he was looking for wife number two before the mourning cloth was folded away. Emeka did not grieve, he reorganized. Within 3 months, he had made a decision, and the decision was this. The problem with Adais was that she was too close. Too many people in Otuocha had known her family, known her face, known enough to ask questions he did not want to answer twice. A man in his position could not afford that kind of proximity a second time, so he looked far. He sent word through a cousin who knew a man in Aguleri, who knew a family in a small compound outside the main town. He was not looking for love. He was not even looking for companionship. He was looking for specific things. A woman from somewhere quiet, somewhere that had not heard his name yet, and somewhere that would send her to him with no knowledge of what had happened to the last one. He found what he was looking for in a woman named Chisom. She was introduced to him as gentle, obedient, God-fearing. Her eyes were lowered at the introduction. Her voice was soft. She did not ask him anything. Emeka saw all of this and was satisfied. He did not know that Chisom had done her research long before he had done his. What Emeka did not know, what he could not have known, was that Chisom had a cousin who grew up 3 compounds from Adaise's mother. She knew everything before she said yes. She knew about the soup that was not cold. She knew about the nights the neighbors pretended not to hear. She knew how Adais had looked in that last year, smaller somehow, like a woman being slowly erased. When word reached our village that the big provision man from Otuocha was looking for a new wife from somewhere quiet, somewhere that had not heard his name, Chisom had sat with that information for 3 days. Then she had sent word back through the same chain that she was interested. She came into his house with her eyes lowered. She cooked before he woke. She answered every question with yes and never with but. She laughed at his jokes and was silent during his moods and asked for nothing. Emeka watched her for 6 months and decided she was perfect. His guard came down so completely he stopped locking his study. Chisom noted this. She noted everything. Studying him the way a student studies for an exam, she has already decided she will not fail. She was almost ready. It was a Tuesday. Nothing about it was special. But Emeka woke at his usual time, dressed at his usual time, and walked into the kitchen expecting what he always expected. There was no breakfast. There was no Chisom bent over the stove. There was only the sound of her in the parlor, seated calmly, hands folded, watching him with an expression he had never seen on her face before. He asked her what was wrong with her. She yawned. The sound of it, slow and unbothered, hit him somewhere below the chest. He stepped toward her with the full weight of everything he believed about himself, and she stood up from that chair at a speed that made him stumble backward into the doorframe. What happened next took less than 40 seconds. When it was over, Emeka was face down on his own parlor floor with both arms pinned behind him and his cheek pressed flat against the tiles he had paid good money for. Chisom spoke calmly into his ear. She told him she knew about Adais. She told him she had witnesses, photographs, a letter Adais had written and given to her mother and never sent. She told him the witch doctor he had paid to curse the market, woman's shop had already been visited by the police. Then she told him the new rules of his house. Otuocha saw everything. The first scene was a Monday morning. Emeka Supreme Stores was open, but Emeka himself was outside it, on his knees in front of the market woman whose shop he had tried to curse, returning every naira the witch doctor had collected with a handwritten apology Chisom had composed and he had signed. 3 traders watched from across the road. By afternoon, the whole market knew. The second scene was a Wednesday. A bucket of water, a bar of soap, and Emeka's hands deep in a basin, scrubbing his own shirts on the front veranda, while his two shop boys tried to look anywhere else. Chisom sat in the plastic chair beside him, reading a Bible with the serenity of a woman on holiday. The third scene was the broom. Nobody could fully explain how it started. What everyone agreed on was how it ended, which was Emeka running past the mechanic shed, past the borehole, past three women selling okra with Chisom behind him at a pace that suggested she was not tired at all. Old Mama Dyke watched from her doorway and said to nobody in particular that this was better than anything she had seen on television. An elder on the compound nodded slowly and said that a man who plants cruelty should not be surprised when it grows legs. Time passed the way it does in small towns, adults slowly and with witnesses. 6 months after the Tuesday that changed everything, Emeka was still in his house, still running his shop, still alive. But Otuocha had reclassified him. He was no longer the man whose name made landlords stand straight. He was something else now. A story people told their sons at the dinner table. A cautionary example delivered with a small smile. The market woman's shop did not close. It expanded. She added a second store the following dry season and hired a girl to help her. Every coin she earned stayed solid in her hand. Emeka's coins did not. It was not magic. It was something quieter and more permanent than magic. It was reputation. Suppliers who had once extended him credit began requiring payment upfront. Customers who had once greeted him first now simply shopped elsewhere. The word had moved through Otuocha the way words do without asking permission. Chisom visited Adaize's grave on a Saturday in November, alone, with a small bunch of white flowers. She stood there for a while without speaking. Then she said quietly, "I did it, sister. Rest well." She meant it. And somewhere beneath the red earth, perhaps something finally did. Now, my people, what have we learned today? We have learned that a man who walks like he owns the ground will one day meet the ground walking back. We have learned that cruelty does not disappear when the person it was aimed at goes quiet. It waits. It finds a way. It shows up one Tuesday morning with folded hands and a yawn that shakes the foundations of a man's entire self-belief. We have learned that the market woman's shop is still standing. And we have learned that Emeka's coins, every single one he tried to spend on wickedness, turned to dust before they could do their work. But here is my question for you today, and I want you to answer honestly in the comments before you go anywhere. If you were a neighbor on that compound, the kind who heard things at night and looked at the sky in the morning, what would you have done differently? Drop your answer below. Let us talk about it. And if you are new here and this story held you from beginning to end, do not leave without subscribing because part 2 is coming, and I promise you Chisom is not finished yet. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. We will continue.